It was a cold night when the sky broke open. A fireball fell from the stars, crashing deep into the dark forest outside a quiet town in Oregon. No one saw it except for a night shift worker named Tom. He was driving home after fixing broken lights on the highway. Tired, bored, and ready to sleep. But then, boom, a flash lit the trees like day. His truck shook, and he hit the brakes. "What the hell was that?" Tom whispered. He looked around, but the road was empty. The forest looked normal again. Still, the light had been real. And the sound, it wasn't thunder. It was something else. Tom grabbed his flashlight and stepped into the woods. The air smelled like metal and smoke. Branches cracked under his boots. And then he saw it. A ship, not a plane, not a satellite. A real ship, burned and broken, half buried in the earth. And not from this world. His heart pounded. It looked like something out of a sci-fi movie. Sleek metal, glowing lines, and a round door that looked like it had been forced open. Smoke hissed from broken panels. He raised his light, unsure if he should run or get closer. Then he heard it. A sound, not quite a scream, but not human either. Something suffering. Tom stepped closer. Inside the ship, it was dark and full of strange lights. He saw control panels, smashed glass, alien writing. And then, in the corner, something moved. It was her. Tall, thin, with skin like silver blue stone. Eyes deep black and hair like soft metal threads. She was leaning against the wall, holding her stomach. Her breathing was heavy, her body weak. She looked at Tom, but didn't speak. Tom didn't run. He didn't scream. He just froze. The alien woman opened her mouth and said one word. "Help!" Not loud, not angry, just tired and scared. Tom lowered his light. "I'm not here to hurt you," he said, not sure if she'd understand. But she blinked slowly and nodded. Then she passed out. Back in his garage, Tom did something crazy. He brought her home. He wrapped her in a blanket and laid her on an old mattress. He had no idea what he was doing, but he couldn't leave her in the forest to die. When she woke up, she spoke again. Her English was broken, but clear enough. Exile, alone, child coming too late for home. Tom realized she was pregnant. She was exiled from wherever she came from. Alone, scared, and expecting a child. And no one was coming for her. Her name was Zura. She came from a planet called Morel. She wasn't a soldier or a spy, just a scientist, sent away when her pregnancy was discovered too late. Her kind didn't believe in late births. It was seen as weakness, so they threw her out. Tom couldn't believe it. How could an advanced species be so cold? But he looked at Zura, her eyes, her pain, and knew she wasn't a threat. She was just a mother, trying to survive, but it wasn't over. Not even close. The crash hadn't gone unnoticed for long. Military teams were scanning the area. Satellites had picked up heat signals. Something had fallen, and they wanted to know what. And who? Tom had to hide her. He turned his garage into a lab. He learned her biology. He gave her food, warmth, and slowly, trust grew between them. But time was running out. Zura's child would be born in days, maybe hours. And strange symbols had started to appear on her skin. Marks of pain, or maybe something worse. A warning. One night, while Zura slept, Tom stepped outside for air. The stars were bright, but one light blinked, just once, then disappeared. A strange hum filled the air. He looked at the sky, heart sinking. Something else was coming, and it wasn't friendly. It was 3:14 a.m. when Zura opened her eyes. She didn't breathe. She didn't move. She just stared at the ceiling, listening. Something had changed. She could feel it in the air. Not Earth's air. Something older, colder. Something she thought she had escaped. Downstairs, Tom was sleeping in his recliner, snoring softly. The garage-turned shelter was quiet. But Zura knew. They had found her. 3 nights ago, she had used a hidden beacon. Just once. Just for 10 seconds. To check if any friendly ship was nearby. A mistake. The beacon was old tech, damaged in the crash. It had sent the signal too far, too loud. Now others had heard it. Not her people, not help. Something worse. She sat up slowly, one hand on her swollen stomach. The marks on her skin glowed faintly, pulsing like a warning light. A ripple of pain moved through her body. The child was close. Too close. Meanwhile, on the edge of the town, in the woods where Zura's ship had crashed, a new sound echoed, soft, electric, not from this world. A small orb, black and smooth, floated just above the ground. Its surface shifted like oil in water. It paused near the broken ship, scanned the wreckage, then moved silently toward town. It wasn't here to rescue. It was here to report. And behind it, something followed. Tall, fast, and wearing a shape that didn't quite hold together. Like a shadow trying to wear skin. Tom woke up coughing. The garage lights flickered. He rubbed his eyes and looked at the clock. 3:45 a.m. The air smelled strange, sharp like ozone. Zura was standing by the window, barely breathing. She turned to him, eyes wide. "They come," she whispered. "Who?" he asked, grabbing his flashlight. "No time, we go now." She moved faster than he thought possible. Tom grabbed the emergency bag, tools, wires, an old blanket, and helped her into the truck. He didn't ask questions anymore. Not after everything he'd seen. He just drove. 10 minutes later, the orb reached the garage. It hovered, scanned, then stopped. A thin red light pulsed from its center. The shadow arrived, stepping through the open door like smoke made solid. It stood still, then crouched to touch the blanket Zura had used. A spark jumped from the fabric to its fingers. Zura's DNA. It had found her trail. The thing didn't speak, didn't roar. It just turned toward the road and began to follow. Far from town, Tom's truck rolled into an old mining tunnel, long abandoned, cold and dark. He had found it months ago while hiking. No one came here. No cameras, no noise, no hodges. It was the only place he could think of. Inside, Zura sat against the stone wall, breathing heavily. The child was coming. She couldn't wait any longer. "I protect," she said, her voice low. Tom knelt beside her. "You're not alone," he replied. But even as he said it, the walls around them began to hum. Not with machines, with presence. Something had entered the tunnel. It wasn't human, and it wasn't far. Zura looked at Tom, her eyes wet and glowing faint blue. "If I not live, you take child." "No," Tom said. "You're going to live, both of you." The shadows moved outside, slow and silent. Watching, waiting, Zura closed her eyes and began to sing, not in words but in deep, echoing notes. The walls responded, glowing with lines only she could see. A barrier began to form, energy swirling like a shield. But the creature was already too close. It didn't start with pain. It started with silence. A silence so deep it felt alive. The kind that pushes on your ears, fills your lungs, and makes your heart beat louder. Zura lay against the cold tunnel wall, one hand on her stomach, the other glowing with weak blue light. Tom stood just a few feet away, holding an old metal pipe. He wasn't a soldier, but he was ready to fight, even if it meant nothing. Outside the tunnel, the wind didn't move. The trees didn't shift. Even the insects had gone quiet. And then came the voice. Not a scream, not a whisper, but a voice speaking from inside their heads. "You shelter the unworthy." Tom's grip tightened on the pipe. Zura gasped and tried to sit up. Her body trembled. The baby was coming now. No time, no more running. The shadows at the tunnel entrance began to take shape, like smoke folding into bones. It stepped forward, tall, thin, skin that flickered like static. No eyes, no mouth, just a face shaped like a mask. It wasn't human. It wasn't like Zura either. It was something made for hunting exiles. Zura screamed, not from fear, from labor. Her body glowed softly, strange symbols lighting up along her arms and neck. The air grew warm, pulsing with energy. Tom ran to her side. "What do I do?" he asked, panicked. "Keep me awake," she said, teeth clenched. "Don't let me sleep." The thing at the tunnel mouth stepped forward again. Its feet didn't touch the ground. Every movement was silent, smooth, wrong. "Return the child, and I will end you quickly," the voice said. Tom shouted, "She's not going anywhere. Get lost." He raised the pipe, useless but brave. The figure tilted its head, curious. A soft hum filled the tunnel like pressure building in the air. Then the lights on the old mining wall flickered to life. Not from power, from Zura. She reached out with a glowing hand, touched the rock. The stone responded. Lines of ancient alien script lit up, spreading across the walls like veins. A symbol flashed behind her head, like a crest. She was activating something old, something buried here long ago. The figure moved faster than Tom could see. One blink, and it was just 10 feet away. Tom stood between it and Zura, shaking, pipe raised. The figure reached out, but it never touched him. Instead, the baby cried. A single sound, high and sharp. Zura had given birth. Wrapped in glowing blue light, the child floated gently in her arms, not crying now, just looking around. Its eyes were huge and silver. Its skin soft and pale blue, like moonlight. The figure froze. The hum stopped. Everything paused. Tom looked between them, heart racing. What just happened? Zura whispered. She has the mark. The baby opened its hand, and on her palm, glowing softly, was a small symbol. A spiral of light, ancient and rare. A birthmark that meant power, prophecy, or danger. Maybe all three. The creature stepped back, for the first time unsure. It spoke again, but this time it wasn't a threat. The child is marked, it said, voice shaking, she is not to be destroyed. Tom blinked. You're going to kill her, and now you just, walk away. The figure looked at him, then at Zura, then at the child. The law is clear. The mark changes her status. It said, she must be judged by the old circle. Then, like dust blown by wind, it faded. Gone. The silence returned. Zura collapsed, weak but alive. Tom caught the baby, holding her gently. He looked down at the little girl. Alien, glowing, peaceful. We're not done, are we? He said. Zura shook her head slowly. No, now everything begins. The baby didn't cry again. She just stared. Big silver eyes, glowing softly in the dark tunnel. Tom had never seen a look like that. Not from a baby, not from anything. She looked calm, focused, almost like she was listening, and then she pointed at the sky. Just a tiny hand, barely able to move, but she pointed upward through the stone, through the mountain, as if she knew something was coming. Zura sat up slowly, her face pale, weak, but peaceful. She held out her arms, and Tom passed the baby back to her. She sees beyond, Zura said softly. Even now. Tom knelt beside them. What is the old circle? He asked. Zura didn't answer at first. Then, in a low voice, she said, It is not a place. It is not a person. It is the oldest law. Tom frowned. You mean like a court? Zura nodded slowly. The court of species, time, blood. Tom didn't understand at all, but he understood one thing. Earth wasn't safe anymore. If the creature from before had bowed to this child, others would come too. Curious ones, dangerous ones, powerful ones. And they'd all be looking for her. The next morning, the birds were quiet. Clouds hung low over the forest. Tom stood outside the tunnel, staring at the sky. He didn't say it out loud, but he felt it. Earth had changed. The world had no idea what had just been born beneath its soil. Zura came out with the child wrapped in blankets. She needs to leave, she said. Not now, but soon. Tom turned to her. You just gave birth. You need rest, food time. Zura shook her head. I'm not important now. The child is the key. Tom looked at the baby, so small in her arms. He hated the thought, but deep down, he knew she was right. This wasn't a child that could grow up in a human town, go to school, play with toys. This child had already changed the laws of the galaxy. And someone, somewhere would want to use her, or stop her. That night, they went back to Tom's garage. Quiet, low lights, windows covered. Zura laid the baby in a makeshift crib made of blankets and wires. Then she sat at Tom's old workbench and pulled out a thin metal device from her coat. Damaged, but still working. A communicator. A very old one. I will call the Watcher, she said. Tom raised an eyebrow. The who? She looked up at him. The one who guards the path to the old circle. He never answers, but he always listens. She activated the device. A soft hum filled the air, then silence. She spoke in her language, calm, slow, like a prayer, then turned it off. That is all, she said. We wait. But they wouldn't have to wait long. 3 hours later, the power in the garage cut out. The lights died. The radio buzzed to life, static, then a voice low and cold. You are not alone. Tom grabbed a flashlight and stood up, heart pounding. Zura didn't move. She looked at the baby, who had opened her eyes again. Outside, something was hovering in the sky. It wasn't a ship, not like Zura's. It was round, black, with lights that moved like liquid across its surface. It didn't land. It simply opened, and from the opening came a single object, a cube, falling slow like a feather. It hit the ground without a sound. Tom stepped forward, picked it up. The moment he touched it, his mind filled with images, stars, planets, wars, voices, judgment, circles of light, a council watching a child wrapped in fire. Then, silence. He dropped it, gasping. Zura picked it up gently and nodded. They accept her, she said. She has been summoned. Tom looked at the baby, sleeping quietly again. She's just born. How could she go now? Zura placed a hand on his shoulder. If she stays, Earth will burn. Tom looked at her, then the ship in the sky, then the stars above. I go with her, he said. Zura smiled, a tired, honest smile. That was always your path. There was no sound when they left Earth. No engines, no fire, no shaking ground. Just a moment, one blink, and the garage disappeared, replaced by black. Not darkness. The void. It was space, but not the space humans knew. This was deeper, colder, older. A part of the universe only a few ever saw, where stars whispered, and time didn't move the same. Tom stood inside a ship with no walls. Everything around him looked like moving glass. He could see stars, galaxies, even Earth far behind him, shrinking, fading. Yet his feet were firm, and the air was warm. He turned to Zura, who was holding the baby close. She looked calmer now, stronger. The baby's skin glowed faintly, soft light pulsing with each heartbeat. The mark on her hand, still there, still shining. This isn't a ship, Tom said, looking around. Zura nodded. It is a gate, a path only the marked can travel. Tom looked down at the floor. It wasn't floor at all. It was stars, stretched flat, forming a bridge into nowhere. Ahead, far in the distance, floated something massive. A ring, larger than any city, turning slowly in the void. Light poured from its center like a star being born. Zura whispered, that is the gate of judgment, the beginning of a circle. As they moved forward, something began to change in Tom. He didn't feel heavy, but he didn't feel light either. His mind buzzed with strange memories, not his. He saw visions. A child born under 3 moons. A war that broke galaxies. A council of beings made from light and memory. And always the mark, the same spiral, appearing again and again throughout history. He staggered back, dizzy. Zura caught him. She shares with you, she said. The child trusts you. Tom looked at the baby. She wasn't even a day old. But somehow, she was already ancient. They reached the ring. It didn't open like a door. It pulled them in like water down a drain. No fear, just movement. And then light. Endless light. When a light cleared, they were standing in a room that wasn't a room. It looked like stars frozen mid-explosion. Floating pieces of planets. Giant books made of light. And in the center, 7 chairs. Each chair was occupied. Not by creatures, but by presences. One looked like fire. Another like crystal. Another like a living cloud. They were the old circle. The judges, the watchers, the keepers of what should and should not be born. A voice spoke, but not from a mouth. You bring the marked child. Zura stepped forward, bowed deeply. I bring her for judgment. Tom hesitated, then stood beside her. I speak for her too, he said. There was a pause, then another voice, deeper, colder. You are human. You have no standing here. Zura placed a hand on his arm. He has more standing than many here ever had, she said, firmly. He saved the life you seek to judge. The baby opened her eyes. The mark on her hand burned brighter. The circle fell silent, as if listening. Then one by one they stood. Each judge stepped forward and placed a hand above the child. With each touch, visions filled the air. Memories, futures, truths. They saw wars that hadn't happened yet. Planets that would live or die based on her life. Peace or extinction. Then the last judge spoke. Her fate is not exile. It is impact. They turned to Zura. You were cast out for bearing her. But in doing so, you carried the future into the present. And to Tom, you were not chosen by design, but you chose. That is what makes you worthy. A light filled the chamber. The child rose into the air for just a moment, then returned gently to Zura's arms, sleeping again. The circle spoke as one. She may live, but she will be watched. The spiral awakens. Then they vanished. The chamber faded. And once again, Tom and Zura stood on the bridge of stars. Tom took a deep breath. So what now? Zura looked forward into the dark. We don't go home, she said. We find it. The first bounty was placed 7 hours after the judgment. 10,000 galactic credits for a child not yet named. Posted in hidden corners of the deep net. Encrypted and fast. The message was simple. The spiral lives. Bring her to me. Signed, the one who remembers fire. Most ignored it. A few laughed. Only one responded immediately. With no words, just a location. Earth. But they were too late. She was already gone. Across the stars, quiet signals began to stir. Old machines powered up. Long-dead satellites blinked to life. And in the ruins of a forgotten moon, something opened its eyes for the first time in centuries. It spoke one word. Tom. Inside the star bridge, Tom didn't know any of this. He sat cross-legged on a floating platform of light. The child slept beside him, curled in a field of soft energy. Zura stood at the edge, looking into the next system, a cluster of dying stars and hidden outposts. You're quiet, she said. Tom shrugged. I'm thinking. About what? Why they knew my name. Zura turned, eyes narrowing. What do you mean? Tom looked at her. When that last judge spoke, they said I wasn't chosen by design. But I chose. Like they expected someone else. Zura frowned. She didn't like that. Not at all. They didn't know it yet. But deep inside the oldest prison ship in the galaxy, someone else had spoken that same name. He didn't have a face. Not anymore. Only a metal mask etched with scars and code. But behind it, rage. Behind it, memory. He survived. Tom felt it before he heard it. A sharp pain in his chest, like ice driving into his ribs. He gasped and fell forward, clutching his shirt. Zura ran to him. What is it? She asked. But Tom couldn't speak. He saw images, flashes. A burning spaceport. A metal hallway. A child crying behind glass. And a tall figure in black armor, turning away. Then a voice, not his own. Tom Carter. You were meant to die. He sat up, sweating, heart racing. Zura looked pale. Someone reached into you, she said. That's not possible unless... Unless what? Tom asked. She stared at him. You've been touched before. Tom blinked. I've never left Earth. Zura looked at the baby, still sleeping calm, then back at him. Then someone brought something to you, she said. Before all this. Suddenly the ship around them jerked. Lights dimmed, then pulsed red. An alarm in Zura's language flashed. Warning. Trace intercept detected. Someone had found them. And they weren't alone anymore. Zura grabbed the child. Tom grabbed the interface panel, shaped like liquid metal. He spoke fast. Where can we go? Zura replied. Nowhere safe. But the ship answered instead, redirecting to protocol shelter, origin rift. Tom didn't know what that meant, but it sounded worse than staying still. The star bridge shattered. For a moment, they were weightless in raw space. Then light bent around them, like folding paper. The ship twisted inside out, and they were gone. Far away, the one in the mask watched the feed go dark. But he smiled, because even if Tom didn't remember him, he remembered Tom, And the child wasn't the only one marked. Tom Carter died 3 years ago. At least, that's what the system said. Car crash. No witnesses, close file. He had no memory of it. But someone else did. Someone who pulled his body from the wreck and rewrote his DNA under starlight. They didn't save him. They changed him. He woke up in the origin rift, eyes burning, lungs shaking. Zura stood above him, bruised and bleeding, the baby crying softly in her arms. The ship had crashed again, this time on a forgotten moon full of broken tech and shattered metal. But it wasn't random. It was chosen. This place, Zura whispered, it's where they made the first spiral. Tom stood slowly, head spinning. He didn't feel like himself. Not exactly. Why does that name mean something to me? He asked. Spiral. Zura hesitated. Then she told him the truth. Long ago, a child was born in secret, marked like Zura's daughter. The first spiral. But she didn't live long. She was betrayed by the one closest to her. A man who loved her, but feared her power. He gave her location to the Circle's enemies. And watched her die. That man's name was burned from history. Erased, removed, buried. Until now, Tom backed away. You think that's me? Zura nodded. You're not the man who betrayed her, she said. You're the echo. What does that mean? You were born on Earth, but your soul is linked to that man's DNA. A clone, maybe a mirror, maybe a second chance. Before he could speak, the sky above them cracked open. A ship descended, black, sharp, silent, and from it walked the masked figure. He didn't come with weapons. He came with truth. I knew you'd come here. Tom Carter, he said, voice calm. This is where you were built, after all. Tom stepped forward, fist clenched. Who are you? The mask clicked open, slowly. Underneath was a face, twisted with old scars, but human. Too human. You, Tom whispered, because he recognized the eyes. They were his. Older, broken, full of regret. The masked man nodded. I'm your first version, he said, the one who betrayed her. You were made to fix what I destroyed. Zura held her child tighter, stepping back. Why come here, she asked. The older Tom answered without looking at her. Because I want to see if I was wrong, he said one last time. I want to see if I can become more than a mistake. He reached into his coat and pulled out a crystal, small, sharp, glowing red. The memory shard, he said, it holds the truth. Place it in the spiral's hand, and she'll choose what future becomes real. Tom looked at Zura. Zura looked at her child. Then Zura nodded. We trust her. She placed the shard in her daughter's hand. The baby looked at it for a long moment, then closed her fingers and light exploded outward. The rift shook, time bent, and a voice, small, young, but clear, echoed across the galaxy. Begin again. Tom fell to his knees, the world spinning. When he looked up, the older version of him was gone, vanished like smoke in the wind. But the mask remained, lying still in the dust. Zura stepped forward, smiling through tears. It's over, she said. The spiral has chosen. Tom stood, holding the child for the first time. She looked up at him, peaceful, powerful, brand new. She didn't choose revenge, he said. No, Zura replied. She chose healing. Far across the stars, all the bounties disappeared. Weapons power down. Enemies stopped moving. Because something in the universe had shifted. The spiral had lived, and the one who once betrayed her had found redemption through a stranger's kindness. A human from Earth who just said yes.